Okay, so this video I'm going to cover how to model a couple of the additional detailed things in the house. So things like the windows in the corners, some of the casework, and yeah, some of the framing for the doors, that kind of thing, and the chimney. We've already covered how to model this stuff, the glass wall into the zag one, and casework. Oh, and then that concrete step as well. So starting off where we left last time, we have a kind of the glass wall completed. So I'm going to turn on my scoria wall and kind of map out where my window framing should go. So I'm just going to use a curve to start off with. I'm going to use the command Polyline, and I'm just going from midpoint of the wall. I can kind of work in whatever direction I need to if I have those dimensions. I personally don't have those dimensions. I'm also going to, if I'm going this way, in ortho, I'm going to hit tab on the keyboard to lock myself into that direction, and then I can just line myself up with the midpoint on the adjacent opening of the wall right there. That's how I did that. Like I said, I don't have those dimensions, so I'm just going to make it up a little bit based on what I've already done. All right, I'll go ahead and make one closed outline there. That's all I need to get started with here. I'm going to turn the scoria wall off, and I'm going to go over to my framing that I did over here, and just kind of pull these dimensions off. Can't quite remember them. Let's see. So our flat bar is 3/8 by 4.8 inches. Okay. I'm going to use the command rectangle. I'm just going to go to the midpoint to one of these edges. I'm going to use the command center, center it around the curve. I'm sorry, around curve, not center. So midpoint, then I'm going 3/8 and 4.8. Oops, I should have used, try that one more time. Round curve. Okay, so 3 divided by 8, and then I'm typing in the quotes sign. Tell Rhino I'm in inches. 4.8 again, quotes in inches. Okay. And then I'm just going to move vertical, line it up at the base. You know, like line it up at the bottom of that curve so that I don't put it in the center. But sitting on top of the scoria there. Right, and then just like before, I'm going to use the command sweep. 1. Select rail, that's my outline. Then select the cross section, that's my rectangle. Okay, there you have it. Throw that on the steel framing layer, there we go. And I think there is also like a steel element at the corner of the window, right over here. I do that guy as well real quick. I don't really know how it's positioned and kind of how that all works. And, smart track off. And I kind of center it on the edge there. Okay. Then I'll just extrude that curve. Extrude curve. I need to. That's not the right layer. Okay. Make sure that guy is on the right layer. All right. So now I can go ahead and put my glass in. Just going to use command plane, go vertical. Oh, you know what? There's one thing we should do before I get to that, which is, again, there's these little windows. Oops, to copy that. So tap Alt on the keyboard to copy it. Rotate it straight again. Position it however far it should be. So there's these little windows on the side where we actually have a little operable guy. And then I'm just going to use mirror to go across one corner to the other. Should have had the command copy turned on, or the option copy turned on. There we go. Now I have the two side windows framed out. Now I can draw my glass. I'm going to use the command plane, set it to vertical, go in midpoint of my not rotated element, hit tab on the keyboard there. Oops. I'm just looking for the intersect. There we go. I'm going up to the top. That. And so for this guy, you could kind of do the same. I have to turn those off. I'm going to set that guy in a little bit. That's going to be the framing of my operable window, which should have that same kind of angle iron holding the panel, just like we have here. And so I'm going to copy the cross section of this guy real quick and just trace it. All right. And I'm going to place that right center, snap off, and place that right at the midpoint of my wrong line. There we go. Rotate it so it's lined up. Actually, this guy should be on there. Look at what thickness I modeled for these guys. A quarter inch, I'm not sure where I got that from. Okay, so I'll do the same thing, sweep one. Oops, select the rail, then select the outline. Okay, get on the right layer here. And I'll just select that outline, the same one, planar surf, make it into a panel. I'm going to extrude surf 0.231 inches. Give it some thickness there. Make sure it's extruded in the right direction. Go. And then I'll just mirror this across that kind of thickness of that panel. Again, the option copy turned on. Okay. I think that's kind of the framing that holds up the screen or something. Anyway, okay, I'll sit a little bit closer to the surface there. And then I guess the operable window comes in. Is that right? Not totally sure here. Yeah, so it looks like we have another set of frame in there. Okay. Did I mess this up? Right. Oh, and again, we'll copy that stuff. I'm actually just going to group this little bundle right here, copy it, mirror it across the other side. Right. And what else? So yeah, that little framing piece. So I could just copy this guy. Oh, that framing. And I'll rotate it 3D. Move edge. Bring it in. Yeah, so I'm going to move this down by half. Move vertical. Midpoint. So I'm going to scale 1D these guys from the midpoint. Line them up. I'll mirror this guy. Go 3-point again across the midpoint. Make sure the option copies turned on. So, okay. Scale these back to. And then we could draw the additional framing in there to show the operable window. One of the quickest ways to do this kind of thing is like, you can use that command that I just mentioned, move edge, and I'll show you how to do it right now. So I'm going to copy this guy into this frame. Okay, now I'm going to isolate this and the frame so we can see what we're doing. Isolate does the same thing as hiding everything else. The same thing as invert and then hide. So you can see my frame is kind of mismatched. My angle that holds the panel. So I'm just going to move this out to the side for one thing. So if I use this command move edge, it'll ask me what edges I want to move. I'll just select, and I can move any edge of any poly surface. I can hit direction constant or constraint, I think, and it'll ask me to. I'll just go vertical. Okay, and then I can move these edges and just readjust that whole like assembly at once without having to fuss too much. Now there's an easier way actually to do this, which is if you hold Control-Shift on the keyboard and select, we can select the edges without even using the command. And that does exactly the same thing. And Tab does the same thing as direction constraint. Here's one area where you have to be kind of careful. So because there's an edge right there, we'd have to kind of be mindful of that. Make sure it's moved in before we go ahead and start adjusting the rest of the panel. There we go. All right, I'm going to group this whole thing before I guess a group, and then I'm going to go show. And again, I'm going to mirror this across the diagonal. And over to the other side. There we go. There's our whole window assembly. And you can do the bars if you want to. Maybe I'll show that real quick. I don't really know what framing of the bars looks like. I just want to show you one thing, which is, let's turn our square wall back on. So if I drew, this is a little harder to draw out to like there maybe. Again, I'll mirror this across the diagonal. Trim those and join them. Join, there we go. Okay. So we could offset this. And, you know, I don't know how big it is. We can set the cap to flat, make it one outline. So that could be like, imagine that's our framing. Whether or not it is, we'll just go with it for right now. But if I wanted to, I'm just going to extrude this, extrude curve, and I'll just guess it's like that thickness. There we go. Put that on my steel layer. Okay, so let's imagine we already have the framing modeled. I'm going to select this guy. If I wanted to move it a bunch of times and make those kind of bars like we see in the actual house, it's a quick way to do that. And it's using the array curve command, CRV, array curve. So array curve will array any object along a curve. In this case, we're just going along a straight edge. We want to kind of fill the space of our window. And if I select one of the vertical edges of my opening to make that my curve. Then I'll get this option. It'll tell me, okay, how many items do you want? You can also set a distance. So if I know that it's 3 inches, I can go, or that's a quarter of a foot, 2.25, and then it'll just go ahead and copy those guys along that vertical. So it'll array them at that distance, however many there are, along the vertical dimension. That's how we can make our vertical mullions. Okay, or sorry, our horizontal horizontal security bars. So next thing I want to do is kind of talk a little bit about how to model the casework. So once again, maybe we could do. So the doors would be kind of the same. I would recommend modeling like this. You could model that opening and perhaps just like a little plane for the handle. Obviously, you want to model those window frames. Where am I here? I would also model the doors themselves with a thickness. I don't know if you need to model every panel individually. A lot of that stuff is detail we can add later once we get into the drawing phase. So I would model all this stuff, like I'd model the framing of that, panels, not the individual panels, but model them as a surface. I'm going to model this step. Do that. Okay. Where am I with that? I guess I messed that up. Again, I can use Control Shift and select that surface, move it up. So it's 2 steps, so we'll move it up 14 inches. Like so. Okay. So I'll go to top view here. Model where that step would be. Using my C-plane that I set up a while ago. I'm going to put my snap on project. Draw right on the C-plane. This is, but anyway. Okay. Offset it by 11 inches. So something like that. I think that's kind of, maybe the second step's a little deeper. Oh, this first step actually. So we could also adjust the points of this guy. So that first step actually goes all the way over to the edge of the opening. This guy goes to within some distance. Obviously, that's something you should measure, or you should know the measurements of. Okay. Let's do that. So this my C-planes. Okay, that's fine. So I'm going to go 7 inches on my first one. All right, I can do both at the same time, actually. 7 inches, extrude, curve, 7 inches, delete the curve, sorry. Okay, so there we have the kind of basic steps drawn. I'm going to put this on my layer slab. So I'm going to Boolean union these to make them one volume. And then the question is, how do I model the kind of tapered undercut? I'm going to use isolate to hide everything else. Let's imagine, so I'm going to go line, vertical. There's that line. So I'm going to imagine I'm drawing down. Let's go 1 inch. Drawing up 1 inch. And I'm connecting. Let's imagine that's the kind of profile. Again, well, I think I could sweep this. Let me just try that. Doesn't like that. Oh, I did that wrong. Yeah, there you go. So once we make the shape of that undercut, let me just go ahead and trim And I'll just explode and remove those kind of duplicate faces. And then join everything into one, make sure it's on the right layer. And again, you can always adjust by moving the lines once you've made the thing. So still put it on the wrong layer. There you go. That's how you would do the slab step undercut. The other thing that I wanted to show in this video is just like a couple tricks with casework. So we're going to model just, some of the stuff with our kitchen countertops there. I should still have my plan with me, but I don't. Gotta make it up once again. And I'm using the command Polyline. I'm setting it to project so I don't draw crazy shapes in 3D that I don't want. Okay, so I'm just going to draw the outline of where those cabinets are to start with. That stuff. Stove over here. There. Okay. Okay. So I guess what I would kind of want to do is start at the top of the surface, at the counter level. So I'm going to go back into kind of 3D here. We'll go zoom selected to focus on those elements. And maybe what I'll do is I'll just make them surfaces for right now. I'll join them. Use that command planar surface to make them into a surface. Okay, so I'm going to grab those and move them up. Move, vertical, 36 inches. Okay, and I could go extrude. Extrude surface. Let's do like 2 inches. Okay. So I'm going to isolate just this stuff in the slab because that's all the information I really need. And then, like I said, working just from some basic information we have in images. You guys probably have measurements. Courses. I want a better picture. All right, let's try that one. Okay, so we got a kind of switch block countertop. We got a kind of thin casework, plywood framing. See kind of the order of the parts. We're not going to spend a ton of detail on that stuff, but yeah. So we're going to model kind of the the plywood framing, the doors, and some of the shelving. So I think I need to scale these back just a little bit. Maybe more 1 inch. Scale 1D. Okay. So you could do it one or two ways. You could model kind of the, I guess the best way to do it would be model kind of the framing of the cabinetry, and then model the baseboards as a separate element since that's actually how it's built anyway. For the kickboard. Okay. So I'm going to go dupe edge. Select the edges to duplicate. I'm going to go from these guys. And let me hide this. I'll explode these. I'm going to first offset this cap. Oops, not that. Cap. A few inches. 2. Okay. I'm just going to go all the way, well, I'm going to copy this first of all the way down to the base. Do the same kind of thing. Actually, I can just do it this way too. Go like 3 inches, or just do maybe. Okay, so that's my kickboard right there. Bring that guy up to whatever, 3 or 4 inches. Okay, and I'm going to extrude these down. I think the easiest way to do this is kind of just be like trim away the volumes using other volumes. There we go, I made the volume. I'm just going to offset that volume. Offset surface. Imagine we're using 3/4 inch plywood. There it is. I'm going to scale it to come out of the front there. And I'm going to do Boolean difference. That's how to model it kind of as one element. We could certainly do a plane in here if we wanted to model the shelving. Extrude surface, 1/4 inch. Do it one more time. So model a box the exact size. In case I could have just copied it. Offset surf. So we're going 3/4 inch. You won't see it because it's a solid. It got offset entirely inside. Okay. And then I just scaled it to intersect with the front. From the back, again, we want to leave that gap in the back because it's framed out in the back too. So Boolean difference, and remove that. There. And then I could do kind of the same thing. I could go vertical plane. If I were to draw a door. Yeah, I guess to do that, I would go deep border, get the outline, and then offset the outline. Probably more like 3/8 or something. I'm not sure what that gap would be. Trim the gap so we have a little bit of a space between the door and the frame. And then I'm going 3/4 on that extrusion. I'll do the same thing over there. You could model it all kind of as individual planes, which is, of course, that's how it's actually built. It's built out of plywood. Or you could do kind of what I'm doing, which is a little more expedient. But whatever you think is comfortable. All right, so and I would actually make a new layer and put that stuff on it there. All right. Things up. Okay. So that's going to conclude this video. And we will talk more about the drawing part once we wrap up with the modeling. All right.